Okay, one of the major challenges you're going to be faced with when you're starting a company is things that require legal assistance. So a professional who knows the law and has experience in handling the various kinds of situations startups find themselves in. So let's go through a bunch of them, but at the end of all of this, it's you need a lawyer, and a good corporate lawyer at that, someone with rock solid experience in the law that deals with the starting of a company in the first place. Let's get on into it. So the first matter that you're going to have to deal with, if you haven't already, is what kind of company are you? You need to be incorporated. You got to be recognized as a corporate entity. And then you're going to go through the discussion of what kind of company you are. Are you a for-profit or a non-profit? The laws are very different, and how you incorporate it, is different as well. If you're a corporation, what state are you going to incorporate in? Some will argue, well, it ought to be North Carolina, that's where we are, blah, 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 and a lot of favorable situations in doing it that way. Well, some say, well, we ought to do it in Delaware, it's the most favorable state. Most laws that are adjudicated are based on Delaware law, and on and on and on. A lawyer will help you through that. But then you're going to decide, are you a pass-through entity, or are you an LLC, or are you an S corporation? All of this stuff you need to talk through, and quite frankly, you ought to try and understand. It's not terribly difficult, but understand why you are the corporation that you are. Your lawyer will help you with that. The next issue is that of intellectual property. This is, in the software world, it's your software, probably. Or if you're producing a product, your intellectual property may be the secret sauce underneath the cover of this machine that you're delivering. Whatever it is, it may be patentable. So you need an intellectual property lawyer that deals with patents and can help you do the search that's going to be necessary to determine whether or not you've been scooped by somebody else, or whether or not what you're going to be talking about is patentable. So have an attorney help you with a patent search that's going to precede this discussion, and then talk through the form of protection that would be most appropriate for your company. If it's not a patent, it could be trade secret, some way for you to protect what you're developing so somebody else can't take advantage of what you've already done. So that's intellectual property. There's a lot to it. A close cousin to that is the issue of trademarks. You may have a trademark that you want to put in place and protect. There's a process to do that with the U.S. government. You can actually go to their website and you can do a search on your trademark to see if it's already taken. Nevertheless, there's a lot to deciding in what form this trademark will exist and whether it actually is trademarkable at all. Have a good intellectual property attorney that also handles trademarks help you with this. You got a name you want to protect. You don't want it stolen by somebody else. You need to do this. Then comes the never-ending series of contracts that you're going to have to put in place and have the right boilerplate legal language within it. But I'm thinking of sales contracts, employment contracts, partnership contracts, consulting services contracts for marketing and sales and software services, and the list goes on. You're going to have good, solid, defendable contracts in the state that you're in and have the right language within them that protects your interests. So an attorney ought to get you started on that. And then many of these contracts you just can reuse over and over and over again once it's set. And you do one, and all that follow that are kind of the same kind of relationship, you could probably just continue to use. But make sure you get started on the right foot with your attorney. Licensing agreements, and I'm thinking of intellectual property licensing, where you allow another company use your intellectual property for some purpose in a new market, or OEM'd into some piece of software or a device that they manufacture themselves. A licensing agreement is kind of a one-time thing, and an attorney, again, ought to help you put the licensing agreement together to make sure that you're fully protected and that you're actually going to be able to get and would win in litigation of any case against you on someone who's misusing your licensing. Then, as you take on employees, you should have employment contracts or employment agreements, whatever you call them, that clearly spell out the scope of the job that the employee has, what their compensation will be, and their duties and responsibilities, and it's signed. But you also need to be aware of employment law, the labor laws. And depending on the kind of employees you have, there is a lot of nuance and a lot of material that you have to know in order to make sure you're following employment law. This is an attorney who probably specializes in just this. It's that complicated and that pervasive. I'm not suggesting you become very familiar with this so that you can answer every question that ever would come out of anybody's mouth on the subject, but you do have to make sure that your agreements with employees and your employment practices are following the law. You could also have, instead of a lawyer, an HR consultant who is also very familiar with this. Probably will cost a whole lot less, but somebody can help you through this and make sure you get it right and have the right programs for your employees. Securities is a pretty touchy one. Now you're dealing with the SEC at the federal level and also the SEC-like agency within state governments. When you go out for equity financing, you are selling a security. So make sure that you know what you're doing. Have a good securities attorney help you put together your stock agreements and all the related documents that go with selling stock in your company. Don't try to do that one on your own. If you mess this up, bad things happen. Get a good securities attorney to help you. Related to that is mergers and acquisition. On down the road, you may hope to sell your company to somebody, or you may want to buy a company. It goes both ways here. So again, probably the same securities lawyer that I just mentioned can help you with this as well. Make sure they have experience in negotiating mergers and acquisition agreements. But that could be in your future. As a startup, you probably don't have to worry about this just yet, but I thought you should be thinking ahead. So when you get the attorney that works with you on securities, they can also handle M&A. It might be a good idea. So there you have it. We're now in the full breadth of the kind of legal help you should be considering. And you would be very wise to have some ongoing counsel of attorneys or someone on the attorney's staff that you can call upon when you, quite frankly, are uncertain about how you should be handling certain situations or whether or not you need further documentation and agreements to do what you're wanting to do. Have a good attorney, and with that, also, have a great day.